So I just want to say a special thank you to the people that I reached out to and said, please come and give your feedback as, oh, I'm freezing a bit. That's why I had such trouble. If it gets too difficult, I'm going to tell you while I'm not frozen how I saw the meeting going. So if I keep freezing and it gets really difficult, maybe Peter or Cynthia or somebody can take up the outline I'm suggesting. So as you know, if you read the email or the newsletter, Peter and I and Nikki are opening this space today as a place for you to tell us what you have been getting out of the forum and how you'd like to see it developing going forward. And I think it's a good time to do that because we've had, I know you haven't all been to all of them, and some of you came in towards the end. Jo's intending to come, but she's having a tech person help her sound quality, so she'll be late probably. Yeah, that's what made me think of it, because she's a recent person, so she hasn't seen the whole sweep, but a lot of you have seen the whole sweep. So we started out with tools in relation to the coronavirus thing. We started the whole thing as the whole Peter Fleming Forum as a way of giving support during the pandemic. And for those of you who weren't here, in the first few weeks of teaching tools to give us strength in the face of what was going on and this big change, people did bring shares in about, did share things about isolation or fears or things like that. And as the forum got underway, it kind of accidentally turned into something that was more about teaching and sharing the tools and practicing for us as teachers of the tools, as well as recipients of the tools, practicing that whole thing about repeating the tools and trying to really get a feel for how they're things that you use rather than ethereal learning. So we went on then to connections between the tools, and then recently Peter's been exploring one of his passions about politics and therapy, and explaining the radical nature of Pellin and looking at the world of politics through the Pellin tools. So what we're interested in is reviewing what bits you like best, if there's any suggestions you'd like to make about the structure or about subject matter. And these were the three rounds. My computer's behaving now, or my signal's behaving now, but I'm still going to tell you the three things in case it goes bad again. So, where are we? Yes, so I thought a good way to do this, I'm going to say a little bit introductory remarks after this in a minute, but I want to just put these three sections out here in case we have the same trouble I had for the last 40 minutes. So I thought a good place to start would be start with strength and health first. That's a kind of dictum in contribution training people work. When you see someone for the first time or you're in a group for the first time, we always start with strength and health first. We don't start with problems. So I thought, let's do that here. Let's invite people to say what you've liked about the forums and what things have touched you or what things you really enjoyed. And the whole thing I want to do in the unmute yourself way. I don't want people to be called on and felt on the spot. And with unmuting, you can have some silences, but nobody like, oh, now I've got to say something good, or now I've got to say something critical and I wasn't ready. You choose. And if you don't want to say anything, that the pass rule will be, and no one's going to ask you if you don't say anything. Then I thought a round of hard feedback, and what that that's one of the tools we've taught. You may or may not have been to it, but that's basically saying, well, what would what it can be, what do you it doesn't have to be critical, but just what do you, what has been working for you, what hasn't been working for you, what would you like to see a bit differently? if any, if you have that. And then the last section is looking at what we'd like to do. What do you want? More of the same? Do you want something different going forward? So the only other thing I wanted to say before starting was, we are a transparent organization as well as being transparent in our individual work. And a big part of Pellin work in Italy and in groups, when somebody's done personal work, is saying, and can I have your feedback, please? And asking people, can I have your feedback? And that feedback may be something that is a little difficult to receive, or which can sometimes be good things are difficult to receive for some people, or it may be just a thought. Sorry, I'm a little shaken by my 40 minutes trying to get this meeting started. But always, we as the organization, whether you address the remark to me or Peter or Nikki or everyone, will be passive listening. When you make a contribution in what we're doing today, you'll be listened to. There may be we may improvise a place for saying something about what you say, but it won't be directly after what you say. Anything that's said, we're going to passive listen to. I think that's about it. So going back to, we're starting with strength and health first. Anyone, open the floor for anyone to contribute what they have enjoyed or found valuable in what we've done over the weeks, over the months. Great, go ahead.
For myself, I'm like new to this whole, I don't know what you want to call it for myself, just mental health, or the only thing I can explain it to is it ended up me taking Al-Anon classes online. And because of the forum, I never had anything like this ever before. So it brought a lot of awareness. And because of that, it, I guess where I'm getting at is I come from an area where we don't get this support. And I've applied it when I've gone back home to visit my family and things like that. And that's between Bakersfield and Fresno and people out in the country, good, bad, ugly, we don't have all the resources either, but, watch the media and they'll explain that to you. But anyhow, so for myself, I needed to work on talk therapy. So this helped. And the group was very inviting. The group was very engaging, very warm. Even though we come from different backgrounds and different points of views in politics, what I love about it is this sets the stage for the rest of the world. Like, hey, yeah, just because we have different backgrounds and different things, I mean, ultimately we're coming from the same place. And for me, that's, where did I have it right here. Where did I put it? I'm getting nervous because everyone's on watching me. Here it is. No, yeah. So I made, I have like a packet of notes every time someone talked, just I did it my way. Okay. I didn't do it the way the professor wants it. I have a master's in education. And just basically I got to be trained to be a monkey. And I understand that to a certain degree, but I just take notes the way it makes sense to me. It turns out like a lot of geniuses, which is everyone's a genius, they just do it their own way. And so for me, literally when it came down to it, there's this one conversation and it just kept scaffolding. And I basically got to the root and it came down to let things go. And I don't know, it was like projection from other people. The heart is humble. You don't know your power until you use them. And it was like humanity. At the end of the day, I ended up, doesn't make sense to anybody here, but at the end of the day, I ended up getting back down to the core of what I needed to work on. And it ended up being an example to my family, to some of my nieces and nephews, where I could set the example. And so I was giving back without having to be codependent by just being a healthy human being. So I'm going to leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, I can go. I've really enjoyed getting to know everybody, and at least in the context we are. And I've been able to. I mean, I've been able to follow the tools. I've been able to follow, and I've actually been able to start using them. And in fact, I'm going to kind of brag a little bit, but I was able to use the tools to accomplish a task just today. I mean, just yesterday, actually. I have been, for my astrology practice, I've been, I've been knowing, well, I should have a YouTube channel, but it's been very difficult for me to do it. I mean, to get myself, and I have terrible stage fright, but using the tools as they've been taught, I'm like, okay, well, I know I don't have, my performance life force is kind of goofy. So I need, I had that, but so I was able to just keep that in case. And I made an attempt, which ended up being awful. I mean, I the whole time, and I looked like I was ready. I looked at it and I felt like I was ready to run off and cry, and it looked like I was ready to run off and cry when I was done. But I said, okay, well, I made an attempt. I'm going to let myself, even though I completely flopped, I'm going to let myself have the feelings of accomplishment for it and just let it to the side. And then I started thinking about it, and I was talking with Mary and with Elizabeth and my spouse about it. And I thought, no, you know what? There's a real purpose, and I'm trying to accomplish something. And I was able to use that purpose to sort of go through me to get past my fear and the pit in my stomach of any time I'm performing. And I was able to do it. And I think I've gotten feedback that it's much better, and I felt much better about it. So, but I was able to do that specifically because of the tools of this forum. So, so I think that's a good thing. So.
This is Cece. I really like when we talk this way. I get so much way to apply the tools by hearing other people's stories. And I really like that you don't know your power till you use it. You don't know how you can use these until you actually apply it. And that's what I like about the Pelin tools, is that they're very practical and easy to use if we apply them. And I was reading, it was another book. It was about, it was a positive psychology book. And he was by Seligman, if anybody knows him. And he was talking about how they train the people in the service. So they give them a lot of training, and then they say, okay, just do whatever you want with them. They don't do that. So not that I, for some things they do with them, but I'm just saying the idea is that you get trained in something to use it. And I like when we can see how they apply. I like when I can see how it applies to my life. And I was especially thinking about the social justice talk a few weeks ago. I don't know what keeps me back sometimes. I have a lot of tools to use there, and I feel there's something that holds me back, things I can't. I'm not going to go out and I would, if I was 50 years younger, I would be out there protesting, but I'm not. So, so I'm having to switch to the tools that I can use at this age that are different than the ones that I used when I was much younger, and how to still be effective. So I'm finding some places, but I'd like to find more. But I realize that there's certain things I just don't have the stamina to do anymore. I don't know if there's any tool on that, Peter, but if there is, sure, like, what do we do when our stamina is running out?
So, hi Shelley and hi Joe. I'm just going to explain the format of how we're doing this today. So, as you probably know from the email or newsletter, we're sharing our experience of the forum so far. And this first section is, I'm using the tool Strength and Health First for people to unmute themselves and say what they've liked in what they've experienced so far. And you won't be called on if you don't want to contribute to any of the 3 rounds, which are Strength and Health First, hard feedback about things that you may not have liked as much. And then the 3rd round, we got started really late. You haven't missed much because I had technical problems. And then the 3rd round is what would we like to see going forward. So we're still on Strength and Health First, and only a couple of people have shared. And you just unmute yourself if you want to join in.
Hi. So
Oh,
first,
excuse me. Let's say our name because there's someone who hasn't got the visuals, because Nikki hasn't got the visuals.
all right, this is Elizabeth. Sorry about that. So first of all, I absolutely love the tools themselves. And I'm new to Pellin. You know, this forum is the first place I'm picking up, not all of them, because Mary and I have talked about some of them in the past, but a lot of the tools, this is the first place I've encountered them. And, you know, I really love having this box of tools, and I'm material life force enough that in my head it's a physical box with tools that can be counted and named, that I can rifle through when things aren't going the way I want. You know, the pendulum alone is worth the price of admission, which is in time, not money. And thanks for that. The other thing I've loved is the transparency that's been shown by the leaders and other members of the group, and the sharing that's taken place. And I feel the real connection between people and the trust that's built. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for this. That's all.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I don't think I said thank you after other people shares because I was practicing passive listening. So I'm saying collective thank you to those people who've stepped up so far.
Hi, I'm Shelley from Los Angeles. Could you please explain again what health and strength part is? I didn't really get it.
Oh, sure. That's like the first step in people work with Pellin. If you see an individual client, we always look for strength and health. Like my example I like to give, having had a lot of very deep depression, is if somebody's in a really, really deep depression and perhaps suicidal, then the strength, I don't know whether you might not choose to share this, or you might, but what I think is, well, they're still here. They've had that perseverance. I know how much perseverance it takes to get through those really, really deep depressions. So it's like just training your mind. This is my way of explaining anyway. Peter might want to add something different. But training your mind to not be jumping on the problem, even if the client's saying, this is the problem I've come with. You just lead with looking for that core. We believe there's a core of health and strength in everybody, no matter what's going on in their life. So it was just just bringing in one of the tools we haven't taught to frame this part of the discussion, saying, hey, let's say what we've enjoyed and what we like to begin with.
So what I like is feeling like I'm being able to receive listening and comfort from other people, hearing their stories or being heard in this forum. So I really like that. And I like the idea of what you just said, that within every person, there is their own strength and their own health, which in, obviously some fields of psychology, the idea is where you're looking for what's wrong in the person, right? So I like that, looking for what's right, what's good, what's healthy and happening for that person to make them find their strength and build that. So anyway, I find it comforting to have a place to to share and be heard and to listen. I enjoy that very much.
Thanks, Shelley.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Nikki.
Yep. Hi. I'm Nikki. So I like the tools are taught enough so that people who don't know them before can share things and tell stories, and it's such an interesting mix of, because it's not all therapeutic issues. Obviously, it's some of it's just tales tales of experiences, just such a variety. And yeah, so I like it a lot that we're all in such different places, points of geography as well. It just sort of expands my mind out just because of that simple fact. I'll mute me again, Mary, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. And Mary Stapleton, you look like you wanted to say something?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Mary from the UK. I did the Pelling course, the 3 years completed in 1995 or something. So it's been really enjoyable to go over it again, have the repetition. Pelling meant a lot to me at that time in my life. It gave me a great deal of confidence to set about having a professional career. So the reminder of who I was then and who I am now, I've enjoyed. And thank you very much. It's nice to hear from Peter and Nikki, hear your voices again, and it's nice to be able to say thank you. And I've loved the sense of world connection. I think that's a really important aspect somehow. It's made suffering through Zoom worthwhile. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Well, I guess I'll say what I like. I haven't thought about this. I was too busy thinking about how to structure the meeting today. Well, yeah, I really like the international thing as well. The pandemic coming shortly after I'd taken I think it's after. Anyway, well, actually, the going on to Zoom happened around the time that I was given this position of Director of Communications in Pelling. And so before that, I've been associated with Pelling on and off since my mid-20s, so it's like over 40 years. And of course, it was always, phone calls and when I went to England or when I went to Italy. So it's a huge change for me, that the feeling in touch all week because of our Pelling team meetings, and feeling I can be a really integral part of Pelling because of the change, because of the technology, but also the change situation in the world makes it make more sense that someone in America is an important part of a UK-based team. It's kind of very new. And that's not directly about the forum, but it seems very tied up in my mind with this sudden change for Pelin and change for me in a position in Pelin and change with feeling connected to people all over the world. And so it's exciting. Well, that's the future. I'll leave that bit out. So I love the tools, obviously, or I wouldn't have been around for 40 years. And so I really love the, hearing them again, seeing new people respond to them and start to learn them, and doing more about the connections between the tools in the different contexts we have. And I suppose for me, the thing I like best is that I have been saying for those 40 years, I have been saying for the last 20 years, gosh, if I'd come along at a different point in Pelin's history, I wouldn't be well because I wouldn't have heard the vines. And so this new phase of hearing the tools repeated is really, really meaningful and important to me, because it makes me want to cry. I just feel so strongly invested in how powerful the tools are when you hear them many times, because the one you need the most is often the one, for me it was the one I had the most resistance to. So if you're resistant to the tool that can help you the most, probably, but you only hear it once, you don't have much of a chance to really change your life. So I think that's what I wanted to say on this round. So we know when most people have spoken, so we know whether to go on to the next thing. I just invite, I think it's only Stacey now hasn't spoken, just to say if she wants to pass or wants to speak, and then we know whether to go on. You didn't manage to unmute yourself, Stacey. Should I do it, or do you want to try again? Maybe it's gone on that thing where I have to invite you. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know why it did that. It should now say, yeah, there you go.
Hi.
Hi, Stacey.
Yeah, I've liked the tools. They're practical, and I've liked the community and the sharing and the transparency. That's what I've liked.
That's great. Okay, so yes. Oh, Peter, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. No, that's all right. Yeah, and I didn't particularly want to go at the end like, I'm summarizing it up or something. I'll go in the middle next time. I realize I haven't said this, okay, and I guess because it was difficult in terms of confidentiality, okay? But just prior to starting the forum, me and Pelin and Nikki and then Mary, but me and Pelin went through one of the worst personnel difficulties, conflict that we've had, really. It was, and it goes on a little bit. In terms of confidentiality, I can't say much more than that, but in terms of transparency, I want to say that much. So, and I'd been what I sort of called a lazy leader, okay? I'd let things happen, they drifted, and that was a bad idea. So then I sort of pressed the panic button, brought in Nikki and Mary in a different way, and we've created what we have now. Positive strength and health first, Mary, a huge gratitude that, I said, okay, Nikki's going to have this job. I'm sorry, Mary, you're going to have this job. Do you want it? So we now have an organization, just to share with you. I now call myself the boss, okay? I'm going to be the boss because I was a really lazy boss. I let this thing happen. And I'm sorry it's mysterious, but, you know, those of you who've been in organizations know what they're like. So, you know, I'm the boss. Nikki's the director of therapeutic change, and Mary's the director of communication and organization, and that's where we are. And it's working, okay? It's really working. So, and the forum was, okay, I'm going to do this. You know, I'm not going to go under. Yeah, it wasn't easy, okay? So I just want to share that much. And so the forum's been huge for me. And I guess I just get a lot out of people saying, you know, I'm in Las Vegas, I'm in Eugene, Oregon, I'm in Eastbourne. You know, I grew up in Australia in the absolute great days when Australia dominated tennis, okay? So, you know, someone else says, I'm in Wimbledon. So anyway, I just, and, you know, when I say at the end of it, thank you for coming, my word, I really mean that. So it's been a big one for me. Plus, you know, the technology and what it can mean for us, what it can mean for all of us. Because it's there, and it's not very often that, maybe it is, but you know, a lot of things get harder and harder and harder. They get more complex. But the fortunes are made in this new technical work by making things easier. So for someone like me, the opportunities are marvelous, and you've helped me find them. So that's me. Okay.
I just wanted to add that Jo had to disappear because her sound was even worse.
Okay.
So, she did do quite a long email, so, you know, we, the admin, know what she was thinking. But I'm just letting you know what I was doing on my phone was I was reassuring her that was fine and hope to see her Sunday. So now the second section is, and I think it'd be a good idea to just take a minute to switch, to think, what do we think, what would I like to say? You know, I gave it the tool heading of hard feedback, but, you know, we're inviting you to share with us things that perhaps haven't gone so well for you, what content you've been most interested in, what format has most interested you. Do you prefer like a simple focus on the tools, but if you're fairly new to it, not necessarily if you're fairly new to it, because I like that too. Do you like it when, well, no, that's a different thing we've done, Mike, sorry. So I think that's probably enough background. And I didn't think of this at first, but when most people have shared, if you know that you don't want to share, just put your hand up and say, I'm going to pass this round, and that's absolutely fine. But before we get to most of us having shared, let's just open it up again.
The tool I'm most resistant to is passive listening. And it's probably the one I need the most because I live with a very difficult person. And if I would own my own power and passive listen to her, we'd get along better instead of being defensive and answering her back all the time.
Oh, well, maybe you and I can talk about that in a phone call, Stacey, because it fits with so many Al-Anon tools.
Yeah.
As well, that you and I could probably have a productive talk about how to cope with your mum using a mixture of Al-Anon and Pelham tools. Because
yeah.
Just to say briefly, I know I said I wasn't going to reply, but just for you and your difficult circumstance, passive listening isn't about saying I've got to passive listening to abuse that's coming in. I mean, I'm saying that word loosely, of course. I don't mean to pin it on your mum, but like if somebody is, say, nagging a lot, it doesn't mean you're supposed to listen and take it in. No, it's but it's a tricky tool to get the first time you hear it.
Okay.
Can I go next?
Yeah.
It's Mary in the UK. I don't like Zoom very much, but I really don't. I feel inhibited by the knowledge that it's being recorded. That's my biggest bugbear about it all. And I think now that it's summer, the weather's changed and everything, twice a week sometimes seems difficult to make the space for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Hi, this is Elizabeth. The thing I have the hardest time with right now is that there are at least 3 people that I would like to invite to come participate in these forums and learn the tools, but I can't see a good jumping on point for them because some of the connection stuff and the political stuff, it would be like being thrown into the deep end. They, and these are people who would actually really love to engage with Peter on the political application of these tools, but they need to be grounded in the tools first. And I don't really see a space for them to do that. I myself am having to kind of run to keep up lately. Yeah, that's the biggest one.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
All right, I'm gonna go. Thank you, Soul Sister, for going first, Elizabeth. For myself, I posted an American flag, that there's an American flag at the Redmond, Oregon airport. And it's a quilt. And my godfather passed away, and I was using the Pellin tools, and because of the Al-Anon classes about speaking up, so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna, it was a thing I had. He was buried on Memorial Day. And what I liked about, I was going through the airport, I'm always not looking for signs, but the universe, God. And there's this quilt that was stitched, and it was for therapeutic for post-traumatic stress for war veterans. And there's a ranch in Oregon that these people go to. Very therapeutic. I had to defend the American flag against a friend who loved me. And I was like explaining the politics of it. But because of the Pellin tools, I calmed the situation down and said, hey, did you actually read the post? Did you see what it was about? And he was like talking about Native Americans. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I do agree with some of the political stuff. I just echo what Elizabeth was saying, that if you're not grounded and you're not well-rounded, it's, yeah. So, but I don't know, you said it better. So anyways, but for myself, I love tools, you know what I mean? So when Mary had me, or not, I shouldn't say Mary, when Mary lovingly I shouldn't say that word, when inspired me, that's the word, inspired. I'm looking for the right words. Every day I'm looking up new words and learning my vocabulary. So Mary inspired me, and I just got I ordered pamphlets from Al-Anon, and then I was like, oh, this whole new world opened up. And so I'm new to your guys' world, like consider me like in a scientific study. like I'm like, I have no idea, had no idea. So it was all treasure for me. So I don't have much to suggest because I don't know. But I do know that having that little packet or anything like that would be little helpful. And I remember you guys said there was like a little packet or something like that, and that's just taking what you guys already have and building on it. So thank you.
Thanks, Johnny.
Mrs. Cease, Peter, I really like what you have to say, and sometimes I wish you would say them in shorter bits, because then if it's a longer bit, then I've lost the first part of the bit. So if we could kind of chunk it down somehow and have a chunk on this, and then there's time to interact and talk, I would probably remember more. And so, so because it's a forum, I guess, I don't actually understand what a forum is sometimes, but if that usually means that there's going to be interaction, I think, in a forum that we're going to be. So I would like that better if the material would stay with me better if it was in smaller chunks.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
I thought the whole interaction with politics and the tools was very interesting, and I certainly appreciated all the wealth of knowledge, but I'm terrified of the politics in the United States right now. And I think sometimes hearing about it, and in fact, sometimes I learn things that were going on here that I try to limit the amount of contact I have with it. So, and maybe this is just a personal thing that it is frightening for me because of there's just so much going on. So I did end up going through some, gosh, this is hard. But it just was difficult for that part of it, just because of being so close to a lot of what's going on. Some of it was scary.
I'm just going to come back in and remind you that hard feedback is hard to say, hard to receive, and I forget there's a third thing, but it's challenging. It's a challenging tool, and it's great when you're brave enough to take the risk of saying what's truly on your mind. It's a different kind of transparency, right? That's not easy.
Mary, I wish we could call this something else besides hard feedback. Maybe that's the tool that's always used, the name, but I think honest feedback, or maybe that's not even the right term, but it's more saying a direct thing that you believe. It doesn't mean that it's true, but it's from it's from my point of view that I'm doing. So hard sounds like it's going to be hard on the person. I don't know what the effect will be, but I want to say it in the best way I can. And so I'd like us at some point to look, not necessarily right now, but at changing that term to something else that is, I don't know, it's more of a creative thing. The process is you're giving that feedback to create something possibly new. And so I'd like us to think about that in the future.
Thanks, Cece. I'll go.
I was going to go.
Oh, you go, Shelley. That's fine.
Okay. Hi, I'm Shelley in LA. So, yeah, I like what Cece just said. I think that was very interesting because maybe you're not going to say hard feedback if you think the other person's not going to receive it well. So maybe it's like authentic feedback, but anyway. But what I was going to say is I wanted to learn more. Maybe I need to look at the written material, because I remember seeing that diagram of the pendulum when Peter held it up, but I can't see it on the screen. You know what I mean? Like I can't really see it. So I don't know if there's somewhere I can see it, pendulum, and understanding the pendulum more. That's what I would like.
I have a actually it's available with Google search. There's a PDF. Well, it's not a PDF, it's a PNG or whatever that is, of the old style pendulum, which has a lot of good information on it. It doesn't have the pretty colors. I've got that downloaded. I can send that to anyone who wants it, and then we can. Well, part of the reason we don't have the material, the PDFs of the learning cards available, is to do with the difficult situation Peter mentioned. It isn't just our inefficiency. So, but yeah, if anyone wants to put in the chat, if they want me to email them the PDF of the black and white pendulum, I can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was going to say, you know, I love being taught by Peter. I wouldn't have stuck around this long, but I do experience a lack of that. For me, there hasn't been enough interaction. Obviously, this is like very interactive. It's all interactive, but I too get a lot from hearing how people have used the tools and well, anything people share. And I think that forum does imply, I mean, I think the title Peter Fleming Forum implies there's a lot of Peter Fleming, but there's also all of us, because it's not a forum sometimes means a few leaders, I think. And I suppose, speaking honestly for myself, I feel I could contribute a bit more than I'm sometimes able to in this kind of hostessy way. But it gets a bit crowded out by Peter sometimes talks for a long time, and then it's evolved that he's the one that calls on people, and so I haven't been able to have as much of a function as I wanted to, really, and I muscled in today. Peter was very good about it and said, do it any way you want, but I kind of thought, okay, I'm director of communications and this is about where we've been and where we're going next, so I'm going to take charge of this week. But that's not really what I want to see going forward. But I'd like to see a bit more mix and match, if you like taking advantage of having it's great having people come back quite regularly, and let me just let Nikki in, and really getting to know people. So I really want that richness that we kind of see, and I do really feel with Elizabeth, her points, and I'll make my suggestion about Elizabeth's point in the next thing about going forward. So that's it for now.
I guess I'd thank you for this. It's great. And I'm looking forward to the next round. But I guess what I would like, as being the person on the other bit, is I mean, people being more demanding, and more demanding of me. Yeah, we have a long history in Pelham of transparency, which we're pretty proud. And maybe I'm a little shy to share this because it sounds a bit egotistical looked at one way. But, you know, David Pelham taught me with some vehemence that if you want to destroy someone, just turn them into a hero and wait, okay? So we have a long history of handling conflict in a particular way and sort of relishing it. And I'll try and keep it simpler. I want to say that bit, yeah, you were just being really demanding on me, because you could imagine what that would do for me at my time of life. It's just really exciting.
Thanks, Peter. Right, I'm going to mute myself again because there's lots of building and street noise.
What's the next part?
Have I lost track? Has everybody shared something?
Hmm.
Who wants to? Okay, so the next part is looking at, after hearing what people liked and saying ourselves and hearing the things that were a little harder, what ideas do we have about what we'd like to see going forward? So, for example, I'll make my suggestion. I wondered if maybe once a month or something, we had a forum that Peter could come to if he wanted to, but that I took that was about looking at one or more of the tools in that simple way, the basic tools thing. So it was like an introductory session for, I mean, it was like a review session for people who learned the tools, and a place that you could bring people in who haven't heard the tools before. The drawback in that I can see is that then the first person they meet isn't Peter. So that's really open to discussion. But somehow the idea of deliberately, whatever theme we might be pursuing, if we still went on with kind of having series, which is just how it evolved, but it has evolved like that, that once a month we did something that was like an entrance way for people. I'm thinking of, I do a writing class that's actually not very conveniently from 8 to 9 on a Sunday morning. And once a month, there's a completely free call that you can go to this writing class. And then the rest of the month is actually paid for writing classes. So that's not quite the same model, but that sort of open invitation session, and then it's back down to, in that case, the paid group, and in our case, people who turn up regularly and any of the new people who might want to turn up. It's always on that drop-in, drop-out basis. It's just we never expected to have a regular group of people. Just as it happened that way, then that has to be built in a bit into, take notice of your needs, because people are regular. We have to build that into what we do going forward, even though it's completely open to drop in or drop out. That's mine. I hope that gives you an idea.
Mary, I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying. It sounded like they were kind of almost like a drop-in AA meeting or something like that, or a drop-in out and on, where you go and talk about some particular issue that's concerning you, that maybe you want to deal with in more depth. Like, let's say if I dropped in and I want to work on the pendulum for myself, that would be a place where I could do it and maybe get some feedback or something like that. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Well, I think that's a bit different from what I meant, because I was thinking of it more of a teaching thing, but that sounds like a really good idea too, like an open session for things you've noticed where you want a bit more guidance or feedback around a tool you've been trying to use. Like, that sounds really interesting. So don't worry about it being different. It sounds good. Yes, Cynthia.
I'm going to pipe in just because actually that's what I was thinking of a little bit, like what Cecilia was talking about, just more of a space for us to be able to talk about and listen to others about how they're applying the tools to their life, and more about, and just now that we've had a good basis in being taught the tools, at least the ones who are here, just more of a application and help and discussion and how we use it in our own lives.
I want to add on to that, because I think we could do that in our regular sessions if we just had one focus, and we could probably do more of that. But I'm just going to use the pendulum as an example. But if we had a little exercise where I did my pendulum at work, or my pendulum at when I'm very mad at somebody, or my pendulum when I'm trying to do some new thing. You know, just that might be something we could incorporate it and talk with each other about it. I would like to see something like that too.
Hi, this is Elizabeth. Here's my idea. The way I think of it is in terms of tracks. Part of the thing has been that, you know, the way we do things now is we stay with a certain theme for a while. And instead of doing that, we have, you know, have rotating things where, you know, it's the primer level of a tool for one session. And then you can rely on the next session in a month being, I don't know, connections between tools, and the next session being politics, etc., so that they rotate out regularly. I need to hear if people are understanding what I mean by this.
I don't quite, I'm not
Yes.
quite following it.
Yeah, I really understand it.
Oh, okay.
I'll come in a bit later, okay? But to answer your question, Elizabeth, yes, okay?
Yeah, where instead of we do six or 8 sessions on politics, we do the sessions on politics interspersed with other tracks that people are wanting to do, such as introductory level, such as examples from life, such as connections between tools, and that it rotates out in a way that people can predict, so that, for example, if people find the political stuff triggering, they just don't participate in that track. And that's fine for them, because they don't have to miss a month and a half at a time. They just miss, you know, 1 session out of 5 or whatever it is. That's my thought. Is that a bit clearer, Mary?
I didn't unmute myself because it's still so noisy in this wonderful, lively Mexican street. Yeah, that's much clearer, thank you. And I just want to add that, as I think I mentioned, the kind of evolving into training was accidental, and just bear in mind that there will be a structured, definite online Pelling training starting sometime in the fall, and that would have more, you know, use Zoom's facility to have breakout rooms, so you could do, I mean, I'm guessing, I'm not saying we've decided this part, but Zoom has a facility to do breakout rooms, so you can discuss a tool in small groups, or, you know, give examples in small groups and then come back to the main group. I've seen that work really well in some of the Black Lives Matters meetings I've been to. Oh, well, white people, Black Lives rather. And so it's almost like we're accidentally a forum for what works on Zoom for giving training in terms of doing a formal training, but it will be more formal. It will have different bits in it that might be like what you said, Elizabeth, or might be a bit different. And it is a paid course, but it's also going to have a flexible fee structure based on people's financial resources. And I'm in charge of that because I'm good at, you know, I'm good at saying, you know, if you've got a house and 2 cars, even if you feel like you haven't got any money, you've got a lot more disposable income than someone who's struggling just to have enough food on the table. So if you want to do this, you have to pay X. So that's definitely in the future, but it is an important background to what we're looking at today. Like, how can we make the forums better for you? But in the background, you need to know that if you're really interested, no matter what your financial situation, there is a proper training course which will end up with in-house accreditation that you would be, if you're interested in that depth of involvement.
I was
Let,
only thinking so far as rotating topics, but that is all really interesting.
let me say something about recording, okay? When I started it, it wasn't going to be recorded. Let me just make it simpler. I think we can record some, but not all. And maybe as the recordings mount up, we realize that we got way too many anyway. All right, it's silly. Are we going to have 50 recordings of these things? So not only is it necessary, but it's practical. And I think we can say, you know, this particular one's going to be recorded. The reason I did the recording bit against everything I've ever practiced before was that, try and be brief, I thought in terms of the helping professions, those of us who did psychotherapy had it really easy compared with people who are going into hospitals and being nurses and doctors. So I thought, what risk could we take? Okay. And then I thought, okay, we can make this available. Okay. And Pellen's whole, anyway, look. So I think we can record some, but not all for sure. And I know people who would like to come, but do not want to be recorded. I think that's a really fair demand.
I just want to say I don't quite agree with that. And the reason I don't quite agree with it is we're not pushing the channel in any, we're not actually doing anything about taking it to first-line responders. And would it work for them anyway when they don't have any background in it? It's actually like a private channel on YouTube. Only the people who come or read the newsletter know it's even there. So it's not being watched by a whole lot of people. There aren't a lot of views, and that's fine. So there aren't a lot of views. It's people catching up on one they missed, or looking back at the beginning of one they missed. And I'm not sure it's even the people. I mean, oddly, there are about 10 people who always open the newsletter, even the Wednesday one, when they have never come. And that's fine. And it's very interesting to me that they're interested enough in Pelin to keep opening the newsletter when they don't want to come to the forum. And as far as I know, they're not going to watch the forums. So it's actually fairly private, just saying, because that's a factor in deciding to record or not, I believe. Yes, Cynthia.
And just to let you, on a very practical note, two things. One, I can easily, if somebody doesn't want something recorded, I just tell me no, and I can pause the recording, and that's fine. And I can edit it out, and I've done it for people, and I'm just putting out there that, you know, and I usually wait a day before I do, just in case I hear somebody say, oh, I said this, and can you edit it out? But I have the capability of editing out a share if somebody accidentally says something that, oh gosh, I don't want this to go on there, and if somebody lets me know. I mean, it's not too difficult to do. I mean, it's a little, you know, it'd be easier if you told me ahead of time and I could pause. But if you do it afterwards, it's not that big of a deal. It's fine. I can do it.
Yeah, thanks for that bit of technical knowledge. It's helpful. So I'm not sure if I realized maybe with Nikki leaving, I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything I think you missed the second round, did you, Nikki? Maybe you want to pass, which is fine, but.
I don't know. I was just coming in just now anyway with something that I thought of that I would like to
Go ahead.
suggest about this thing about us all being in different places. I'm sort of a bit interested in having a little bit more because we tend to be the same people. We hear the same place names all the time, and short of magicking up different people who say different place names, which will be just more exciting to hear different place names. I'm kind of interested in, like, some of these places in America. I've got a rough idea which side of the country they're on. But I guess why it's a bit exciting to me is, like, I actually have no idea if somebody's in a suburb or, you know, I guess probably most people are in a suburb, but I don't actually know. And I have thought as well, you know, what do people in America think when they hear me say, well, I'm in Wimbledon? You know, so I just feel like it would be interesting to me, not for us all to do it all the time, but maybe one person a week or something would say a couple of sentences about the place where they are, just so that, for me, so that I can visualize it. Although that might be disappointing. Maybe it's more exciting not knowing. You know, I hear Oregon. It's like, I don't know. It's exciting because I don't know where to put my brain, right? I don't know whether, it's like, I probably best not go to Little House on the Prairie as the visual image. Probably suburb.
Little House on the Prairie ends up in South Dakota. She never gets
okay.
that far west.
Okay. So even then, see, or, you know, I don't know, things are suburbs or shiny office blocks. I literally, I don't know where to put my brain in visualizing. So that's just my contribution about that.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki.
I'd just like to add something to that, because, you know, the fact we don't all live in the same place is different. And I, you know, I'm enormously grateful about today. But I'm, you know, because of my obsession with American politics, you know, I was aware of the issue that, and, you know, if this goes on, it can happen at other times. There were certainly times when London was being, you know, had terrorist attacks on a regular basis. But people can be living in places where really hard stuff is happening, okay? Frightening stuff. And I just want to, I've been just thinking about that, and how do we have some sort of awareness about that? And I was thinking, yeah, you know, I live in whatever it is. I think we have just something about some sort of sensitivity about what people might be living through. That's all, and whether that could be built in somewhere. Yeah. So that's almost doubling down on what Nikki's saying from a slightly different point of view.
Does anybody else want to come in on this things for the future round?
I just think it's good that we did this, and maybe we can do it a little bit more frequently, but maybe shorter. And so, so we can look at this over time.
Yeah, nice idea.
I mean, it's great to get more frequent positive feedback. And then if there is some kind of glitch, it's easier to fix if we hear it, you know, up front, and we can look at that then.
Is this a good time to move on to, like, saying where we are and, like, if we want to add anything? Like, I'm thinking of that. I don't think particularly use this word in Penning, but I use it in other meetings, comes up in other meetings, like, what's your takeaway from this? Like, I know I've got like one thing that I'm taking out of the whole thing that is meaningful to me to comment on my experience in this particular forum. Do people feel okay about that? Like, it's not long after our official ending time, but it's a good time now, I think, to wrap up and add, yeah, I guess just the same we always do, like say where we are and add something if we want to. Perhaps I'll go first. So I'm Mary in Rosarito Beach, and it would be more scary if I was at home. Even though I'm in the middle of the mountains, I'd be surrounded by a lot more of the disease than I am here. I guess my takeaway is really around the word participatory. I heard what C said, and yeah, we don't want to have an only participation for the whole hour and a half as a run of the mill thing. But I really have always liked it when there's been people have come in and unmuted themselves, whether it's asking Peter questions or sharing their own examples. And I want that to be part of what we do going forward. That's me. Sorry, I'll change it to calling on people because we're trying to close out. So, Peter, do you want to go next?
Yeah, well, thank you for this, Mary. It's been great for me. Something about transparency and something about if I had been transparent earlier, which feels scary about what my need was in this, okay? Just that. And I guess, well, the suggestions that are made here are great. And yeah, we'll act on them. Just be reassured we'll act on them. Maybe that's all I want to say.
So, Elizabeth?
I'm Elizabeth from Eugene, Oregon. And gosh, don't ask me about my hometown because I will talk your ear off about it. I love it. And what I mainly take away from this is a lot of hope for the future and a lot of gratitude for how we've been listened to.
Thank you. Nikki, do you want to go next?
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's really great. So many people turned up for this, and everyone's just taken part. It just feels really good. And so I'm Nikki, and I'm in Wimbledon. I'm going to elaborate. So it's in southwest London. It's kind of a suburban type of area, but like any other part in London, it's kind of its own little town because London's made up of all these different towns that all just joined up around the edges eventually at different times. So it's got its own town centre, and obviously I don't go anywhere else at the moment. And we have a big common that's 42 acres big, and we're famous for tennis, but I have no interest in sport. And and there's also Richmond Park, which is quite near, and that's got red deer. And then a couple of years or more ago, they commissioned some art for outside Wimbledon train station, and what we got was this huge metal deer, which clearly says Richmond, doesn't it? So that's my little bugbear. Thank you.
Shelley, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Shelley, and I'm let's see, I live in Woodland Hills, but I'm 7 miles from where Mary usually lives from her house. And I used to live in Topanga. I grew up in West LA and moved to Santa Barbara for grad school, then went up the coast to work. Then I came back to Santa Barbara. Then my husband and I met and we said, where will we live? Because we need to make a living. And my mom's down here. So someone said to us, how about Topanga? We both looked at each other. We said, perfect, Topanga. It's in the mountains. It's so beautiful. So we lived there for I think about 6 years. But when we could afford a house and all that to buy a house, we decided we'd come down in here. So we live right near Calabasas. Mary knows, right? I live just on the other side of Mulholland and Mulholland, and my office is literally on the corner. So it's Little Shelley Horner Counseling Inner Corner on Mulholland and Mulholland. So everybody should have an image of motorcycles. Don't come visit me on a Saturday at my office. It's so loud.
Wow.
But it's kind of a cool area because it's Topanga, it's Calabasas, which is, a lovely, lovely suburb, obviously. They spend a ton of money on landscaping, so they have a beautiful thing, but it's all sprawling shopping centers, right? There's no village. My husband grew up in London, so I know what the villages are like, and I so love that. You can walk places. Here you don't walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's sprawling.
You're still close to the ocean, even if you're 7 miles further than me.
Right. So I'm like 10 miles, right? 10 miles from the ocean. But anyway, I love the idea of rotating and having a clear idea of what we're going to be talking about. And then obviously, if you're doing the trainings in the breakout rooms, that is not recorded, because, I'm sure I feel a little bit like Mary. I would love to disclose more and talk more, but I feel a little bit uncomfortable thinking that maybe some random person, though it probably wouldn't happen, maybe somebody would be listening and I'd feel very, embarrassed. So I like the idea that some things wouldn't be.
Mary Stapleton.
I'm Mary. I'm in Eastbourne, south coast of England. Eastbourne is known as God's waiting room. There's a lot of us old folks live here, and a very lovely waiting room it is too. And I intend to be waiting a long time. Bye.
Stacey?
I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's 102 now, and it'll be 90 at midnight. It doesn't cool off in the summer at night, which is I love the desert. I love the lights, and it's a nice little town.
Thank you. Cynthia?
I'm Cynthia. I am really grateful. And I don't know that I expressed this as well as I wanted to, but I'm very grateful for these forums. These have been really good for me. But I am I'm living in Kankakee. I'm actually not. I'm actually from the Chicago area. I was born in Chicago, and I, lived in a lot of suburbs throughout my life. And Kankakee is in a weird spot. And to explain this, in Illinois, and this is the way everybody thinks of Illinois, there is, or at least that's how I think, at least in Chicago, Cook County, the collar counties, and then there's downstate. Where I am is sort of in the middle between, depending on who you talk to, whether we'd be considered the collar counties or downstate. So we're just right at the border of that. And things from Chicago, things from Chicago almost always eventually trickle down to us. So like when there's a big outbreak in Chicago, because there's a lot of commuting back and forth between here and Chicago. So.
And Cease, last but not least, you're just last on my screen.
Okay. I'm from Cease from Tampa, Florida. Florida is considered God's waiting room too. The whole state is God's waiting room. It's also where every crazy thing you ever thought could happen will happen frequently on the news. Florida man did some crazy stuff that usually makes the news. And we have one of the highest rates of coronavirus here. It's rampant here. We have a governor that doesn't believe in wearing masks. We have Congress people who don't wear masks. Nobody knows when the schools are going to open, if ever. It's crazy, so it's kind of frustrating right now. And fortunately, I can work at home doing telehealth. Another Florida story is that the wall of my office went one day and it had fallen. It wasn't there anymore. They had a sinkhole. Florida's also famous for sinkholes. So my office was destroyed. So then they're working on it, supposedly, but I don't know whether I'll go back. I'm doing okay with telehealth. But those are some of the exciting things of Florida: sinkholes, COVID-19, crazy government, just, it's a circus. So you just kind of get used to it. But it's also pretty. It's pretty. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of great stuff you can do to help work on things here, which is what I like. You never can run out of ideas of things that could make things better. So that's the positive.
Thanks. Okay, Peter, do you just want to close us out with anything? I think.
Well, I guess just my appreciation to you, everybody. So I thought that was just great.
I just want to say Johnny typed in the chat that he had to leave.
Yeah.
Just letting you know.
And maybe I just want to end it with saying, as someone, I'll be 87 in September, but I've got good health, touch wood. I don't want to be I'm really ambitious about all this. I'm really ambitious about how we can reach out in a way that would have been inconceivable at another time. And yeah, I'm just sort of grateful for that. And someone who's currently inspired by a 30-year-old young woman who's got a background from Puerto Rico, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I guess I just want to say that combination of, and I think we can do that within this, if we can be disciplined, which is, a lot of the stuff that you said today was, putting a sort of general theme around it. Let's be disciplined, let's be structured. And that'd be great for Pelham. And if we think of being inspired by an 80-year-old man who's just died and a 30-year-old young woman who's achieving power, and not putting that so much into a political perspective just at the moment, but that sort of age difference and the way that with the sort of thing we did today, with being able to passive listening to feedback, I think it's right. And, time to find a different name. I think we can do a lot with this. And you're giving me the opportunity, so I'm really grateful for that. Thank you. That's me.
Okay, I don't think we know what we're doing on Sunday, so look out for the newsletter.
Yeah, watch this space. Okay.
But thank you very much for all your feedback. We really appreciated it.
Bye-bye. Okay,
Bye.
bye. And the
Thanks,
recording.
everybody.